Hello and welcome back to the Football Insider channel. I am Conor Bromley and today we are talking about the transfer window. We are reviewing Leeds United's business and whether or not they had a good window or a bad window. So Leeds have spent around £100 million and according to the club they were at their PSR limit. They could spend no more, but have they done enough to give themselves a fighting chance of survival this season? That's always the aim for Leeds United after getting promoted from the Championship. Can they survive in the Premier League? Let's dive into what they've done and whether it is enough. So we'll start with the good, and Anton Stach looks like a hell of a pickup from Hoffenheim. He already looks like a Premier League player. Feels like one of them, a little bit maybe like Jaka Bijol when he went to Fulham a few years ago, who was destined for, and I'm not saying bigger and better things to disrespect Leeds, but just in the sense of, I think he could potentially play for a top six club in the Premier League or one of the top teams in Europe. And I think Stach is one of them players that newly promoted clubs are desperate to sign, just upgrades an area of the pitch. And I thought that was a really solid get for Leeds, especially for the price. They paid less than £20 million for him. So that is a really, really good get for Leeds. Jaka Bijol, the centre-back, I think that's a really good bit of business for Leeds as well. It strengthens their defence, which I actually think was already pretty strong. They had one of the best defences in the Championship last season, and I think it should largely translate to the Premier League. So I thought that Jaka Bijol, that was a good bit of business done early in the window. Lucas Perri comes in net from Lyon, and that is a clear upgrade on Meslier. It just hasn't worked at Leeds over the last couple of years. They had to move on from him, and Perri coming in, that's a clear upgrade on Meslier. So that's obviously a massive win for Leeds United. He's an experienced goalkeeper, played for one of the top teams in the French division last season. So that is a good win for Leeds, in terms of bringing a player in. Sean Longstaff obviously has tons of Premier League experience at Newcastle, has proven himself to be a more than competent midfielder for one of the best teams in the country, and that was he's 28 years old as well. It's not like we're talking about somebody who is past his peak. Longstaff's right in his peak years. He's got everything you'd really want. He's physically strong. He's maybe not the best on the ball, but that's not why he's going to be in this Leeds team. He's there to be physical. He's there to be box to box, provide energy in that team. And I think that that's another really, really good sign. And you want players who've got Premier League experience in your team. And, Sean Longstaff has bundles of it. He's been at Newcastle for years, anchoring their midfield for years. So it's a really, really good signing for Leeds, Sean Longstaff. Gabriel Gudmundsson, I think that's a really good pickup at left back. They had Junior Firpo there last season, so it's an upgrade for me. It's a solid Premier League level left back in my opinion. They've got him for a decent price. So, good business for Leeds there all round. And I think Lukas Nmecha, it's a good low-risk signing for Leeds. He's not prolific by any stretch of the imagination, but what he can do is occupy defenders and bring others into the game. And I think Leeds probably needed to have a player like Nmecha in there. Scored, of course, their only goal so far this season. So I thought Nmecha was, a good low-risk signing. Let's move into sort of the undecided. And these are players that I'm just not 100% sure on for Leeds. Noah Okafor, it's potentially a very good signing for Leeds, but he has struggled to find a home. He has struggled to find consistent runs of form. And I felt like it was a gamble for Leeds to put their eggs in this basket. They were tracking, for example, Harry Wilson on deadline day. Would they not have been better going for a more tried and trusted Premier League player in Harry Wilson over Okafor? That is the one sort of question mark over that one. But if he can stay fit, he's had a lot of injury troubles. If he can stay fit, get everyone in this Leeds team, there is potential that he's going to be a strong player for them. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, this is a really hard one to grade. He's obviously got tons of Premier League experience, but it's been a good few years since Dominic Calvert-Lewin was showing signs of being a top-level Premier League striker. He struggles at Everton with injuries, and even last season when he was largely fit, he struggled to score goals, didn't score all that many. I think he has 12 goals in the last 3 seasons. So he's not prolific to say the least, but I do think there is potentially a player there, and I think getting an experienced Premier League striker is a plus for Leeds. I just worry if he is going to be enough in the final third. Are you going to get the 10 goals you need from him? I am not 100% sure. And finally, James Justin come in as a cover left back for £10 million. And this one was a bit of a head scratcher for me. They'd already brought in one left back. I feel like this is the kind of position which, yes, you need, 2 decent left backs in there. But is this one where you use the loan market? Leeds didn't, I don't think, they didn't make a domestic loan this season. So is this one where maybe you try and get a loan player from another Premier League team to fill that spot and use that money to buy in a player like Harry Wilson or Gus Hamer, who they were tracking at the end of the window. So that is the main issue with James Justin. Look, he's not a bad player. It's not that he's a bad player per se, but I just don't know if £10 million when your budget's 100 to spend 10% of that budget on a cover left back, to me feels, not the best use of resources. So I think overall, if we're going to review the window, I think you have to look at the context of it. I think Leeds have probably built a team that is Premier League level through goalkeeper, defence and midfield, but that front line that they've got, and we'll look at the squad depth now, that front line is not Premier League level for me. You've got Harrison and Okafor on the left, you've got Calvert-Lewin, Perri and Nmecha through the middle, and you've got Gnonto and James as well. I mean, I've got some of their positions probably wrong there, but basically that's the context of their front line. And to me, that doesn't scream goals. Leeds probably have to score 45 goals this season to stay up. And I look throughout that whole team. I even look in the midfield. Longstaff's not prolific. Ampadou's not. Stach might get a few goals, but is he going to score more than 3 or 4? Probably not. Tanaka and Aaronson. Well, Aaronson, not a great player. And the defence, they might score from corners and whatnot. But I look at it and I think, have they done enough in their attack? Did they need to sign, another truly quality Premier League caliber winger? Because I just don't trust that Gnonto, James and the other players have got Okafor are necessarily at that level. And I think if you watch their first 3 games of the season, the one thing I would say about Leeds United is really good defensively, look really well organised. When the ball gets in the opposition half, they don't look like scoring. They haven't addressed that. They didn't address that on deadline day. And I think that's a massive concern for me. Look, Joel Perry was prolific to an extent in the Championship, but I've seen nothing so far this season to suggest that will translate to the Premier League. I think Leeds, they possibly should have looked at moving him on to a Championship club and trying to upgrade in that possession. And I think it feels like Leeds are like 2/3 of the way there in terms of their business. And I hate to just compare them with Sunderland, but it looks like Sunderland were able to recruit throughout the whole team and improve every area of the squad. And it feels like Leeds have done a near job. They've not done a full job though. And I think another 50 million expenditure could have went a long way to satisfying those issues. And I think that comes down to the fact that they weren't able to sell players. They had players, Meslier's still there. Aaronson's still there. They've got Peru, who's knocking around, who I don't think the manager necessarily really rates. They've got loads of players at Leeds. Jack Harrison's another one, who they weren't able to move on this summer. And if they were able to move on, them 3 players, Aaronson, Harrison, and Meslier, their wages and what they could have got in terms of transfer fees, then maybe they would have been able to spend to bring in 1 or 2 more attacking players. So I think that's the massive irritation if you are a Leeds fan, is that they weren't able to do that. So is it enough? And I think Leeds right now have a decent shot at survival. They are going to be defensively pretty solid. I mean, I know they got beat 5-0 at Arsenal, but I think largely in games against the sides that are roughly of their level, they are going to be defensively solid, which means they're always going to be in games, which means you can always nick a goal, pick up points. And I think they will do that. I think they are certainly better than the 3 promoted clubs from last season. I just think their forward areas look weak. They haven't created all that much in their games so far. And I think the lack of sales really hurt them in that regard. They need to sell players to improve. But I think it's hard to give them a really strong chance of survival because of their forward line. I think maybe if they're in touching distance come January, maybe they will try to improve that area of the squad. But it's really hard to give Leeds a high grade for the window while there's still glaring issues in that team. So I'm going to give them a 5 out of 10. I thought the start of the window was fantastic. They brought in a lot of players before the start of the season. But then since then, they've really lacked a bit of punch. And I think they really need to add in 1 or 2 players. If they were to bring in Wilson and Hamer on deadline day, so, bring in a good winger, bring in a creator in the middle of the park, they probably would have given themselves a real good chance. But I just think, I look at that team and I'm like, where are they going to score goals? And that's the big question when you try to stay up in the Premier League. But let me know what you think in the comments. Have Leeds done enough in the transfer market? And please like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. And we'll catch you for another transfer window review very soon.